hey.
You gotta think about it. Think about it.
Game Girl. Game Boy.
Superstar DJs. Here we go!
Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well. Here to do a video response. The video response itself was started off by Lee, Nerdy Geezer, and a few people around within, say, the community. People with all sorts of channels, which are gaming channels, video related, film related channels, etc. have got involved. I think I straddle a bit of both, so I'm getting involved in this one. But I was very, very kindly tagged by Marcus, X-Files 2708, a fantastic channel, which I think I've only found out about Marcus, I think earlier on this year. So I'm only like a few months into really enjoying his channel, and his collection is fantastic. And as soon as I, knew that I wanted to get back into, physical film, movie collecting, getting DVDs, Blu-rays, etc., back in, because I got rid of quite a few of them, most of them. He was one of the channels that I started watching, and very aligned tastes in a lot of respects. He's big into his horror and a scary, intimidating 80s or 70s, 80s picture of Dario Argento on my t-shirt, and he loves a bit of Dario. So early on, watching his vids, I thought, and as well as a great personality, cracking guy, love the stuff he's into. So I've been following him, and he's very, very kindly nominated me to or tagged me to get involved in this piece. So we'll go through, and then at the end, if I remember, which I'm sure I will, famous last words, we'll tag another couple of people to get them involved. But yeah, for me, I'll go straight off the bat. I'll go into it. I'm not trying to necessarily throw people off the scent with this t-shirt, because in my opinion it can be a bit of a greyish area. It's not, the boundaries aren't always fully set. But I'm going to go for my favourite type of genre. It would have helped if I bloody explained what the VR was about. So it's about everyone talking to what is their favourite type of film, movie, genre. And for me, it's going to be the thriller. I do love a whole array of film genres, but when I looked at my collection and reflected on this one, it had to be thriller films. And I think some of that maybe due to maybe it was kind of spoilt in the era that I grew up, because there was an awful lot of Fantano nostalgia is probably there, but fantastic content, film content getting produced, getting released, and within that, the thriller genre had a fair chunk of proportion was thriller films. And without wanting to over dissect it, if I look now, I don't think there are too many, certainly not big box office hits or anything really going through the box office that I'd say is a thriller. They're fairly few and far between, and when there are programs that are thriller related, in my opinion, the more commonplace for them is TV media, be it in the UK, BBC, the core channels, or through streaming services, the likes of Netflix, Amazon Prime. That seems to be the place that's reserved for them. And like I was saying before, it is a bit blurred between the thriller horror line, and I'm sure I didn't do film studies. It probably gathers by the lack of how articulate I am talking about some of this stuff. But I'm sure if I was to have done film studies, there would have been a seminar, a class, a bit of a debate around a horror versus a thriller. But when I look at them, from my perspective anyway, a horror film, there's be some suspense in there, but it's probably a bit more explicit in terms of the gore, the blood, seeing stuff, where with a thriller, albeit you can see some of the you may see some of the violence, typically it's a bit more implied. The suspense is there, it might get spoken about, but you don't always see the gory result. And more often than not, and again this is grey, it's not a finite line, more often than not, in my opinion, the thriller is more plot driven, edge of your seat stuff. Not necessarily too nervous about what's coming around the corner, but more intrigued as to what's happening with the plot line and where it's going. And some of that is quite often driven by the characters. I mean, you get some fantastic, horrors with some very kind of compelling, characters that are drawing you to the screen. But I think equally with thrillers, quite often the antagonist is a bit of psychopath, a bit of a maniac. Things aren't what they seem. You can get some science fiction type, or pushing it in that kind of direction, type thrillers, but on the whole it tends to be more kind of pushing the boundaries, or pushing on some disturbed parts of reality, without stuff being too far-fetched. Like I say, it's not always the case, and I'm sure I can be proven wrong with certain examples. When I was kind of thinking this one through, I'm not going to dissect them because it would turn into one of those media studies things as I'm just talking about. But just to demonstrate my thoughts, I've just picked some films off the shelf. I'm going to start with the Dario Argento one, because quite often his films, they're kind of put in the horror bucket, and I'm not, certainly not averse to that, because some of them, are quite full of the red stuff. In fact, most of them probably are. But the plot, just that kind of getting that drawn into, okay, what's going to happen is particularly commonplace. So I've just grabbed, it's not necessarily my favourite Argento film, but I've grabbed an absolute classic. Arrow have done a great job recently getting loads of these onto Blu-ray and 4K, and as well as the picture. This one's pretty early 70s. As well as the picture getting a nice kind of tidy up and the rest of it. The thing that really gets me excited is the special features and the extras that you get with these. But this one, in terms of, the plot, the main protagonist, arguably, or there's kind of a couple, but there's a guy that's blind, and after a murder in this kind of science institute, he kind of catches a bit of a conversation, and then he gets pulled in on. I'm not going to spoil the plot, but he kind of gets dragged in, and he becomes a bit of the detective almost, working with a journalist. I don't know if it's his niece. There's like there's a girl that kind of helps for a bit of it, but and then you kind of meet some of the characters within the Science Institute, and they're all a bit screwed up. They've all got something going on, so therefore it's just messing with your mind as to what is this about, who who's the guilty party, why is this stuff happening. It just kind of edge of your seat type stuff. There's some suspenseful moments, but it's more about the plot, just that ongoing intrigue. Like I said, I'm going to try not to talk about them in too much detail, but classic John Carpenter film, Assault on Precinct 13. I think it's must be one of his early-ish ones. Even my glasses, I can't bloody read the date, but an early-ish one. And again, that kind of that suspense and that plot is driven by I think a gang who are trying to basically seek revenge on the police, and it's gone a bit mad, a bit of a turf war, and a few people have basically been put into this police station that's closing down at the time that the gang are basically they want to take a few people out. And again, it's okay. How are they going to defend the police station? Are they even going to get through the night? Are they going to try and escape? What resources do they have? How are they going to work together? And from memory, and I haven't seen this one in a little while, from memory, the kind of the antagonist is more the gang, the collective, as opposed to one particular individual. So a bit of a cloud of evil that are trying to get in. But that's a classic. This one, I'll thank Every for. I think, funny enough, Lee Nerdy Geezer, I was watching one of his pickup videos. He had a similar experience with just like was it them or Music Magpie? I think it was bought by Music Magpie, but delivered by Every, and it's just in a flimsy, bloody thing. And then the Blu-ray case, which I thought was fairly resilient, was not going to stand the journey itself. But anyway, that's by the by. Doctor Sleep, and I saw the trailer for this one when it came out, probably not too many years ago. Is it 2020, 2019? Sequel to The Shining. And I was a bit kind of dubious of it, but watched it thoroughly, enjoyed it. And I probably, The Shining again is probably a bit of a, thriller stroke horror, but with this there's a slightly more, paranormal aspect to it. There's further killings. This gang of supernatural, almost like vampires, I guess. Kind of living off the spirit of people that have the Shining, and then Ewan McGregor, who's a grown-up version of little Danny Torrance from the original one, is trying to work out what's going on, trying to stop them. And again, it's kind of like, okay, how's this going to happen? How's he going to get through seemingly impossible situations, edge of your seat stuff? But there is a bit, probably is a bit grey. There's a bit of gore in there, and but there is equally, there's a lot of, it's pretty dark, some nasty, I think, kid playing baseball kind of gets abducted by these we call them vampires, people, and some of it you see, some of it's implied, but just the sounds, the audio, the screen, it's just, it's fairly uncomfortable viewing for a pansy like myself. An absolute classic. I mean, I'm probably going back a few decades, but yeah, Dirty Harry. Like I was saying at the top of this video, a lot of, in my opinion, these thrillers, there's kind of a crime element, a psychopathic element to them. So this one's the Zodiac, the killer in this, and obviously Harry Callahan's trying to track him down from memory again. I think it's quite, you see who the guy is, but it's more about how he finds him, how's he gonna stop him, and various, I think there's a hostage situation there with the bus, and there's all edge of your seat type thing. It's not like look away behind the cushioned horror. It's more just like, how the hell is this gonna play out? So that's a classic. And then more kind of criminal related ones with a few, like Psycho Manhunter, so linked to it's like based on the Thomas Hardy books. So linked to get my words out, Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal. Fantastic film. So I think that's 80s. Is it early 80s? Not sure. It's definitely not 90s. But that's a classic. The guy is there's a few things going on. Horrible crim, who in his mind obviously thinks he's perfectly sane, and another completely at random, but he's working with a lady who's blind. And they have a bit of a relationship, and you kind of think, okay, how is she going to find out about what this guy's up to? Because he's clearly a nutcase, and how's that going to develop when she does inevitably? Thinking she's going to find out. How does that play out? And then the police detective, and the it's more kind of, is he like a forensic? It's going to sound about like a forensic psychologist trying to track him down. Wouldn't be a film video if I didn't show a bit of David Lynch. So Blue Velvet. This time it's Dennis Hopper's turn to play the role of psychopath, with the awesome Carl McLachlan as well. And we go a bit gangstery, Bronx Tale, in an immense, but plot driven film. Perhaps hasn't got the duration and length of something like Goodfellas, but proper, it's the gangsters, the mob, the relationships. But this one's probably a bit more complex, because there's people in here that are they're antagonists, and they're plain horrible, but also there's people that probably think they are they're just doing what they've been inherited into, just a kind of ritual way of life. But fantastic plot on that one. Psychological thrillers, Cape Fear. Rewatched this one again recently. So this is the remake, supposed to the original. So the Bob De Niro one, and just the one scary, intimidating, individual. And it's not as kind of sure spoilers. Most of you've kind of seen it, but he follows Nick Nolte. He was the kind of defense lawyer in the case, and he's that bit where he find he's basically hanging underneath the car of the family when they're driving to the holiday spot, thinking, "Oh, we've got away from him." Yeah, you haven't. And absolutely classic. A bit milder in terms of the rating, in terms of the violence, but an absolute classic. Point Break. So again, with this one, it's obviously the police person and the head of the gang, what they call the dead presidents or something, ex-presidents, who go around robbing the banks, and he's kind of infiltrating. It's like, okay, as well as that thrilling, kind of exhilarating chase throughout the film, it's moreover, how he gets kind of close to them. Is he going to kind of keep segregated? Remind himself that he is a policeman. He's not, even though he's kind of with them, he's not really part of the gang, or is he going to kind of fold in? But yeah, amazing film. This one is probably maybe it's a good example of one where I think more people would say it's a thriller than a horror, even though the violence is pretty extreme in this one. So Seven, some of the bits. Obviously, there's the 7 deadly sins, and there's one with a person kind of, we think they're dead, they wake up in bed, and then I'm not going to kind of spoil it, but again, I'm sure most people have seen it, but obviously at the end, how that kind of plays out, and you don't even see. I'll just leave it like this. You don't see the contents of the box. Where maybe in a horror you would have done, but you just know. You just know what's going on there. I'm sure you don't see, but it's kind of implied. So fantastic film. And then 3 more to show. These ones I'm not gonna talk to them. In T2, Terminator, and then Hardware, Richard Stanley film. Both of them absolute classics. But I guess I'm just trying to show the sci-fi thriller with some real pretty gritty plot lines, some fantastic protagonists, and this one's a little less well known obviously than Cameron's T2, but Hardware, an absolute amazing film. And it was on YouTube, if you fairly okay version, palatable version to watch, but about obviously in the future, and the government as part of a it's awful really, human cleansing program has developed this robot that it was going to use to basically take out parts of humanity, and then basically the guy stumbles across one as he's travelling around. I think it's part of the desert, and then this thing just gets unleashed, and it's done on a good budget. But again, you're like, how this thing is like a killing machine. Similarities with that. How is it going to get? How are they going to get away from this thing? How is it even going to end? It's just it was designed to kill. How are they going to survive? And it is phenomenal. The soundtrack's brilliant as well. It's got some cool cameos in there from some pop stars, some rock stars. I think Iggy Pop, I think, is one, and this is Iggy Pop on the soundtrack, and Christ, who's in it? I think Lemmy's in it. I think he's a cab driver. He's in there, and last film to show, and this is kind of back to the fact that I don't think there's an abundance of thrillers coming out, and it's a real bloody shame. But this one I'd put in the thriller bucket, and it is pretty far-fetched. It could have been a David Lynch film, really. But The Lighthouse, where you got like Willem Dafoe, is it Pattinson or Patterson? Yeah, Pattinson. Robert Pattinson. Get my teeth in. Stranded, taken over this lighthouse shift, and they're kind of, it's just about, yeah, what's it? It's a difficult one. I think everyone would have a different, interpretation, but I think most people would have the common view that they are losing their fucking minds. And how stuff plays out, the delirium, William Dafoe, obviously the older of the two, and a bit, taking a bit of ownership in the roles. He's the only one that's allowed up to the top of the lighthouse, and he won't let the other guy, up there. But what's he hiding? What's he doing? Again, yeah, very incredible. So you hope there's a few examples. I'm not sure whether or not they illustrated the point, but I stand behind the genre for me being that of the thriller. And I jotted a couple of names down. I did. So we're going to move on. So in terms of the tags, no pressure, guys. If you might not see this video, I'll tag you, so you'll get a link or whatever. But no pressure at all. I know you're both busy guys. The first one, channel I've been watching for about a year or so. It's kind of grown and grown and grown. But love his anecdotes, his life stories, and also he's got a bit of affiliation to Canby Island, which isn't too far from me, where I think he certainly lived or grew up back in the day. So the first one's a sand scratcher. So if you want to get involved, mate, be my guest. If you haven't got time, not an issue. And then the second one, he always talks fondly of his channel is a lot of focus on your video games and toys, but he's always reserves a bit of time for films, and I think he's got some relations of his certainly in the film industry. So always a fascinating guy. It's Clay Graphics. So I'll tag you both. So cheers Lee, Nerdy Geezer, for coming up with the this VR. It's a really fantastic one. Again, I'll link everyone below. So if you're not following these channels, then please do. And an equally big thanks to Marcus for tagging me, and apologies it's taken a while to get around to it. Alright guys, all the best. Cheers.